I always believed I knew every secret my son kept. But that night, the darkened hallway unveiled a horrifying truth. I never could have imagined a secret lurking behind a closed door, masked by the disturbing sounds emanating from his room. The autumn evening wasn't just draping the Carter household in shadows, it felt like it was actively suffocating it. The elongated fingers of darkness crept through the half-drawn curtains, mirroring the tendrils of exhaustion tightening around my own chest. Spreadsheets swam before my eyes, phantom numbers and looming deadlines echoing the hollowness left by another grueling day at the office, another day pretending I wasn't drowning in the undertow of single parenthood. It was then, standing in the upstairs hallway, the worn floral runner soft beneath my tired feet, that the sounds began. Not the usual muffled thumps of Ethan's music or the click-clack of his keyboard. No, these were different. Subdued, rhythmic, yet punctuated by a strained quality, like breath held too long, expelled too sharply, or worse, like suppressed sobs struggling to break free. They slithered out from under his closed door, insidious whispers in the heavy silence, chilling me to the bone. My hand hovered over the cool brass doorknob, knuckles white, frozen not just by indecision, but by a sudden, icy premonition. A visceral certainty clenched my gut, cold and sharp. Whatever was happening behind that slab of wood was more than teenage angst. It was a fault line opening up beneath our already fractured lives. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the unnerving quiet emanating from his room, each beat echoing the dread that was rapidly consuming me. This wasn't just curiosity, it was a primal maternal alarm bell screaming that something was fundamentally wrong, something deeply, irrevocably wrong. Ethan. My Ethan. 19 years old, perched precariously on the edge of manhood, yet lately, he seemed to be receding, disappearing into a fortress of guarded silence. The bright-eyed boy whose hand I used to hold walking to school, the one who'd chatter endlessly about dinosaurs and space, had vanished without a trace. In his place stood this near stranger, inhabiting my son's body, retreating further into the digital glow and shadowed solitude of his room each day, like a creature burrowing into darkness to escape some unseen predator. I'd poured everything into him, every ounce of energy, every shred of resilience I could muster after Daniel ripped himself out of our lives 10 years ago, leaving a gaping crater where our family used to be. I'd built my world around Ethan, brick by painstaking brick, telling myself his stability was paramount, his happiness the only goal that mattered, a fragile edifice against the relentless storm of single motherhood. But the closeness we once shared, that easy intimacy, had eroded, crumbled into dust, replaced by monosyllabic answers, averted gazes, and doors firmly, deliberately shut. Tonight, that distance felt like a physical chasm, yawning between the hallway where I stood paralyzed and the secrets festering within his room, a dark abyss threatening to swallow us both. The sounds persisted, a low, repetitive grinding, a muffled groan that could have been frustration, or agonizing pain, or something else entirely, something unnameable, terrifying. Something that made the hair on my arms stand on end, prickling with primal fear. Was he hurt? In trouble? Dangerously close to the edge? The possibilities, dark and monstrous, swirled in my mind, fueled by the gnawing anxiety that had become my constant companion, a shadow clinging to my soul. I told myself it was for his sake, this relentless focus, this burying of my own needs, my own loneliness, sacrificing myself at the altar of motherhood. But standing there, listening to those disturbing, intimate, almost agonizing sounds seeping from his sanctuary, a chilling thought pierced my heart like a shard of ice. Had I, in my desperate attempt to shield him from the world, somehow created this monster? This withdrawal, this secret life unfolding just feet away, hidden in plain sight. Had my own carefully constructed facade of steel, my insistence on being the strong one, left him no room to show his own cracks, his own bleeding wounds. The premonition intensified, solidified into a leaden weight in my stomach, crushing the air from my lungs. This wasn't just about catching him doing something private. This felt like stumbling upon the wreckage before the crash, sensing the death throes of something vital, feeling the sickening tremors of an earthquake just before the ground splits open and swallows you whole. This moment felt pivotal, irreversible, a point of no return. Opening that door wouldn't just be intruding on his privacy, it felt like crossing a threshold into a nightmare, into a truth I might not be mentally or emotionally equipped to face, a truth that could irrevocably shatter the landscape of our lives. Potentially obliterate the fragile peace I'd fought so hard to maintain, leaving us both in ruins. Taking a deep, ragged breath that did little to steady the frantic hummingbird fluttering in my chest, I finally forced my fingers to close around the cold brass. The metal felt alien, resistant, as if the door itself was pushing back, warning me to stay away. Every instinct screamed at me to turn around, to flee, to retreat to the relative safety of ignorance, to bury my head in the sand and pretend I hadn't felt the icy tendrils of dread wrapping around my heart. Let him have his secrets. Preserve the illusion. But the sounds, that strained rhythm, that muffled groan of despair, that undercurrent of raw, desperate need. I couldn't. The mother in me, the one terrified of the monstrous unknown that lurked behind the door but infinitely more terrified of failing him, of losing him completely, propelled me forward. With infinite slowness, agonizing deliberation, each millimeter of movement feeling like a betrayal, I turned the knob. The latch clicked, loud as a gunshot in the tomb-like silence of the hallway, echoing the finality of my decision. I pushed the door inward, just an inch, then another, my own breath catching in my throat, a strangled gasp, bracing myself for the horrifying revelation I both craved and dreaded, for the unfolding nightmare about to consume us both. The air that met me was stagnant, fetid, heavy with unspoken anguish, carrying the scent of stale laundry and something else, something acrid, metallic, like blood and fear, mingled together in a toxic cloud. The stage was set for tragedy. The curtain was rising on our destruction. And I knew, with chilling, soul-deep certainty, that nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever be the same again. The click of the latch behind me wasn't just a sound, it was the sealing of a tomb. The air, already thick with unspoken tension and the faint, unsettling musk of whatever I'd interrupted, grew instantly heavier, pressing in on me. Ethan didn't just flinch, he recoiled, physically jolting on the mattress as if struck. His back remained turned, a rigid wall of defiance, but I saw the tremors running through his shoulders, the way his hands clenched and unclenched the pillow he'd thrust his phone beneath, a desperate, clumsy attempt to hide the evidence of his transgression. That crimson flush I'd glimpsed hadn't faded, it pulsed, a raw, furious banner of shame, and beneath it, something akin to terror. His eyes, when they finally darted towards me for a split second before skittering away to fixate on a frayed patch of carpet, weren't just surprised. They were wide, dilated, reflecting the primal fear of a cornered animal staring down a predator. Silence descended, suffocating and absolute. It stretched between us, vibrating with unasked questions and accusations I hadn't yet voiced. Every instinct screamed at me to apologize, to back out, to slam the door shut on this horrifying tableau and pretend it never happened. Preserve the fragile illusion of normalcy. But the image was seared into my brain. His hunched posture, the phone clutched like forbidden fruit, the palpable wave of panic rolling off him. No, retreat wasn't an option. Not this time. Something deeper, darker, was churning beneath the surface of this teenage embarrassment. I felt it like a change in barometric pressure before a storm. My voice, when I finally found it, felt like sandpaper in my throat. I knocked, I lied, the words tasting like ash on my tongue. It was a pathetic shield, a transparent attempt to soften the blow of my intrusion, but it was all I had. It hung there, weak and unbelievable, doing nothing to dispel the electric charge in the room. He didn't respond, didn't even acknowledge the lie. He just stayed frozen, shoulders hunched up to his ears, radiating misery. My gaze swept the room, not just taking in the usual teenage chaos, textbooks scattered like fallen soldiers, tangled sheets, the cluttered desk overflowing with scribbled notes, and the ghosts of late-night study sessions fueled by empty energy drink cans, but searching. Searching for what? I wasn't sure. A clue? An explanation for the visceral dread coiling in my stomach. Was there something specific on that phone screen he was so desperate to hide? Something beyond the typical explorations of youth? My eyes snagged on a crumpled piece of paper near his wastebasket, hastily torn, illegible words peeking out. A random doodle. Or something more significant, discarded in haste. The uncertainty gnawed at me. Are you okay? The question felt laughably inadequate, a tiny pebble tossed into a raging ocean. It came out softer than I intended, tinged with my own fear of his reaction, fear of the answer, fear of the chasm that had opened between us. I'm fine, he muttered, the words clipped, hostile, barely audible. He shifted on the bed, pulling his knees towards his chest, a defensive posture. His fingers twisted together in his lap, a frantic knot of nervous energy that betrayed his curt dismissal. Fine. He looked like anything but fine. He looked shattered. Taking a breath, I made a calculated move, stepping further into the room, and deliberately sitting on the edge of his mattress. Not too close, I needed to respect the invisible boundary humming between us, but close enough to signify I wasn't leaving. The space I left felt charged, a no man's land of awkwardness and unspoken pain. I could feel the heat radiating from him, the scorching burn of shame, but tangled within it was something else, a brittle desperation, a flicker of defiance warring with utter vulnerability. Ethan, I began again, trying to keep my voice level, soothing, the tone I used for scraped knees and bedtime stories, though it felt utterly out of place now. You don't have to be embarrassed. Whatever this is. I'm not here to judge you. The words felt hollow even to me. How could I not judge when my mind was racing with worst-case scenarios? When the sight of his raw panic had shaken me to my core. I forced the platitude out, hoping it sounded convincing, hoping it could bridge the terrifying gap. He remained silent, head bowed, refusing to meet my eyes. The air crackled. Then, finally, he turned his head slightly, just enough for me to see the bitterness twisting his mouth. You wouldn't get it, he said, his voice rough, edged with accusation and a weariness that seemed far too old for 19. It wasn't just embarrassment talking, it was profound isolation. Try me, I replied, holding his fleeting gaze, injecting a confidence I absolutely did not feel. Inside, I was floundering, terrified of saying the wrong thing, of pushing him further away. He hesitated, his hands resuming their frantic fidgeting, pulling at a loose thread on his sweatpants. It's just. He swallowed hard, the sound loud in the tense quiet. I was just curious. It's not a big deal. The denial was paper-thin, pathetic. He couldn't even look at me as he said it. My heart sank. It was a big deal. His reaction screamed it. This wasn't simple curiosity, this was anguish. I nodded slowly, giving him space, resisting the urge to pry, to demand answers. When the silence stretched again, thick and uncomfortable, I gently redirected, taking a gamble. Ethan, you know you can talk to me about anything, right? I paused, choosing my next words carefully, feeling like I was navigating a minefield. I was your age once. I know what it's like to feel confused. Or lonely. Lonely. The word hung there, sharp and resonant. I saw a flicker in his eyes, a minuscule softening around his tightly held mouth. His shoulders relaxed, just a fraction, but it was enough. A crack in the armor. I don't know, he started, his voice thick, then trailed off. He took a shuddering breath. I don't want you to think I'm some kind of freak. The last word was barely a whisper, choked with self-loathing. It hit me like a physical blow, the raw vulnerability of it. My chest constricted, a painful knot tightening behind my sternum. All the potential horrors my mind had conjured evaporated, replaced by a wave of fierce, aching protectiveness and a profound sadness. This wasn't about defiance or rebellion. This was about fear. Deep, isolating fear.